The chandeliers of the Grand Lexington Hotel burned like captured stars, their light scattering across a ballroom polished to a mirror's sheen. Crystal flutes clinked, their champagne fizzing with the promise of excess. The air was thick with roses and ambition, the scent of wealth curling like smoke through the crowd. Harper Lane stood at the threshold, her navy dress, stitched by her own hands over 3 sleepless nights, clinging to her like a second skin. It was not silk, not satin, but it was hers, and that was enough. Her heels, borrowed from a coworker, pinched her toes. Her lipstick, a $5 tube of drugstore crimson, was the only armor she could afford. Yet her spine was iron, unyielding, even as the laughter reached her before she crossed the marble floor. The band played a waltz, its notes soaring above the chatter, but it was the whispers that cut deepest. "There she is," a voice hissed from the bar, sharp as a blade. "Brave of her to show up solo," said another, her cousin Elise, whose smile was a venomous thing. Harper's sister, Rachel Lane, stood radiant at the heart of the room, her ivory gown glittering like a beacon of triumph. She leaned toward A woman beside her, her voice carrying just far enough. "It's honestly sad." The words landed like stones, but Harper did not flinch. She moved forward, her steps deliberate, her eyes fixed on the table marked distant family and +1s. Alone, no one greeted her. Not her mother, Margaret, whose gaze slid away from the VIP table like oil on water. Not her father, Richard, whose jaw tightened as if her presence were an insult. Not her brother, Michael, who had once called her his confidant but now stood silent, his eyes fixed on his wineglass. The air was heavy with judgment, a weight Harper had carried since she'd left their world of penthouses and private schools for a life of her own making. She worked in a used bookstore in Brooklyn, shelving dreams while her family wrote her out of theirs. Rent came before pride, and pride before belonging. She had barely settled at her table when Aunt Nancy leaned over, her smirk a practiced weapon. "Still single, Harper?" The question was a barb, wrapped in false concern. Harper met her gaze, her voice steady. "Still breathing." Nancy's smile tightened, and she turned away, but the sting lingered. Rachel had made it clear. Harper's invitation was a formality, a nod to appearances, a reminder of who held the crown in this family. Yet Harper refused to break. Then the ballroom doors, massive, gold-handled, carved with the weight of old money, swung open with a boom that silenced the room. The band faltered, a violin screeching into silence. Every head turned. A man stood in the doorway, his charcoal suit tailored to perfection, raindrops clinging to his shoulders like reluctant jewels. His hair was tousled, his tie loosened just enough to suggest defiance. He stepped forward, his presence a storm breaking over calm waters. Eyes found Harper's, and her breath caught. He crossed the marble floor, his heels sharp against the stone, past gasping guests and frozen waiters. Harper stood, her body moving on instinct, her mind a whirl of confusion. He took her hand, his grip warm and sure, and leaned close. "Sorry I'm late, love," he said, his voice a low melody. Then quieter, for her alone. "Play along." He turned to the room, his smile carved from diamonds. Traffic was a nightmare, but I couldn't miss celebrating Harper's sister's big day. The ballroom held its breath. "I'm Nathan Hale," he said, his gaze sweeping over Rachel, Greg Madison, and the stunned faces of her parents. "Harper's fiancée." A fork clattered onto a plate. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Rachel's face twisted, her bride's smile gone. Greg's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing. Margaret's mouth opened and closed, a fish drowning in air. Richard's jaw ticked, a vein pulsing at his temple. Nathan Hale. The name was not just known, it was legend. A tech billionaire who had vanished from the Forbes list not for lack of wealth, but because he'd bought the media company that published it. and he stood beside Harper, holding her hand as if it belonged there. She felt the weight of every stare, every whisper. Fiancé? Since when? Is that Nathan Hale from Hale Holdings? Rachel descended from the stage, her gown shimmering but her eyes dark with fury. What the hell is this? She hissed, her voice barely contained. You brought a fake fiancé to my wedding? Nathan's smile didn't waver. Fake? That's a bold assumption for someone who didn't know her sister speaks fluent French, holds 3 patents, and volunteers on weekends. Rachel blinked, caught off guard. Nathan turned to Greg. You're Greg, right? Pleasure. I've read your quarterly projections. Bold to bet on that merger. Might want to reconsider the tax implications. Greg stiffened, his charm faltering. Harper stood silent, her heart pounding. Nathan's voice softened as he looked at her. You okay? She nodded, barely keeping up. He smiled, a shield against the world. Good. You looked so alone when I walked in. I couldn't let that happen. Her father stood, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Nathan Hale, you expect me to believe you're dating her? The word was a sneer, heavy with years of dismissal. She's been nothing but a failure. She walked away from this family, threw away opportunities. Enough, Nathan snapped, and the room froze. His eyes darkened, a storm gathering. If you think raising your voice or rewriting her story will intimidate me, try again. The silence was suffocating. He turned to Harper, his voice gentle once more. Can we step outside? She nodded, and he led her through the crowd, past stunned guests and half-empty champagne flutes to the garden terrace. Fairy lights twinkled above, casting a soft glow over the rain-slicked stones. Harper pulled her hand free, her voice a whisper. Why are you doing this? Nathan looked at her, hands in his pockets, his tone honest. 3 weeks ago, I was in your bookstore. You gave me the last copy of Bel Canto. You said it was your favorite, told me to keep it, even though it was a first edition. You smiled and went back to shelving returns while your coworkers mocked you for talking too much. Harper stared, her throat tightening. You remembered me. I never forgot you, he said. You were kind. You saw me when I was trying not to be seen. I looked you up later, saw what your family said about you. I didn't like it. When I learned you'd be at this wedding, alone, I knew I had to be here. His voice trembled with quiet anger. The way they treated you in there, it wasn't okay. They needed to know your worth, and I wanted to be the one to remind them. Tears burned behind her eyes, not from sadness, but from being seen. Truly, seen for the first time. So, should we go back in? Nathan asked, his smile gentle. Harper steadied her voice. Yeah, let's give them something to really talk about. The ballroom had changed when they returned. The whispers were no longer mocking but wary, tinged with fear and curiosity. Harper felt the shift, a tide turning beneath her feet. Nathan led her past tables like a knight escorting a queen through a hostile court. Rachel stood on the stage, her gown a beacon of light, her face a storm of rage. She leaned into Greg's ear, whispering something sharp. He nodded, reluctant, and approached them with a stiff smile. Mind if we talk? Greg asked, his voice smooth but strained. Nathan released Harper's hand but stayed close. Depends on the topic. Greg's grin was forced. I don't know what this is. Some dramatic entrance for attention, maybe. But I'd rather not have the press spin it the wrong way. It's our day, Nathan. Nathan cocked an eyebrow. You're worried my presence might overshadow your moment. Greg's eyes darted to the phones already out, capturing every word. Let's not make it about whatever this is. You're right, Nathan said, raising his voice just enough to carry. Attention, everyone. I apologize for interrupting earlier. I'd like to make something clear. The room stilled. I'm not here to cause a scene, but I won't Stand by and let Harper, my fiancée, be humiliated while you whisper like vipers behind your crystal flutes. Silence, sharp and heavy. Rachel stepped forward, her voice venomous. Oh, please. This is a pathetic stunt. He's not your fiancé. You probably paid him. The accusation stung, not because it might convince others, but because Harper knew Rachel believed it. Tell them the truth, Harper, Rachel pressed. You begged some stranger to show up here to feel important. Harper's chest tightened, but Nathan spoke first, his voice ice. No, but I did offer to invest in her nonprofit, the one you ignored when she pitched it at your family fundraiser last year. Rachel's face drained of color. You remember, right? A community reading program for underserved schools. She sent proposals, followed up, got nothing but silence from her own blood. Margaret stood, her voice trembling. That's not fair. What's not fair, Nathan cut in, is watching a woman you claim to love sit in the back row while you play perfect up front. The room shifted, guests looking away, sipping drinks to avoid the tension. Harper stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. I didn't ask for this. I just showed up because I thought being here meant I still belonged. She looked at Rachel. I was wrong. In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring in the sun. Rachel opened her mouth, but Harper raised a hand. No more fake smiles. No more pretending you didn't turn your back on me the second I didn't fit your mold. You can keep your perfect wedding, your shallow whispers. I'm done shrinking for your egos. She turned to Nathan. Let's go. The doors closed behind them, and for the first time, Harper felt not small, but free. In the quiet of Nathan's Aston Martin, rain tapping the windows, Harper exhaled. I can't believe you did that, she said, half in awe. Nathan glanced at her, his face soft. I didn't know what I'd walk into, but I felt it that day in the bookstore, like you were fighting to stay visible in a world that kept erasing you. Her throat tightened. It's been like that for years. He nodded, his voice quieter. There's something I didn't tell you. He pulled out his phone, showing a blurry photo of Harper in the bookstore. My assistant took this months ago. She was researching hires for a foundation I'm starting. Your name kept coming up. A piece you wrote on literacy access. I visited to meet you, no agenda. But when you handed me that book and smiled, I knew I didn't just want to work with you. I wanted to know you. Harper stared, stunned. You came to see me? Nathan's eyes were earnest. I didn't mean to lie, but after tonight it felt wrong not to tell you. This wasn't pity, it was protection. He hesitated. There's more. I knew Greg's family before tonight. They crossed me years ago, cost me a deal that nearly broke me. I came here partly to settle that score. Her heart twisted. So this was revenge? Nathan shook his head. It started that way. But you, Harper, you changed everything. She looked out at the rain, torn between trust and betrayal. You read my nonprofit proposal? She asked. All 42 pages, he said softly. I want to fund it. Not because it's good, but because you are. Tears came, not from sadness, but from being seen. If we do this, Nathan said, it's yours fully. No headlines, no press. Just me, standing behind the woman who changed everything. Harper laughed through her tears. You're unbelievable, he smiled. No, I just believe in you. The next morning, Rachel's threats arrived via text, followed by a digital smear campaign. Old photos, twisted headlines. Nathan countered with a press conference, announcing Harper's fully funded national reading initiative. Rachel's lies crumbled, her own financial misconduct exposed by Nathan's quiet call to a journalist ally. Harper stood behind him, silent but unbroken. That night, in her tiny apartment, Harper made tea, the steam curling like a promise. Nathan appeared at her door, holding the first edition bel canto. "Some stories deserve to be held," he said. She took the book, her fingers brushing his. For the first time, she believed in herself, not as a shadow, but as a queen wearing an unseen crown.